Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday, March 25th. We have some serious weather to talk about today. A very good chance of another severe weather outbreak in much the same area that was hit last week. There were more than 50 tornadoes in last week's event down in the deep south, the Tennessee Valley, and the same thing, perhaps even a worse situation could be setting up for later today into tonight. This is the latest storm prediction outlook area for the severe weather from today into tonight and the early part of Thursday. Again, much the same area that was hit about a week ago, the deep south, the Tennessee Valley, extending all the way up into the Ohio Valley. And we'll focus in on numerous ingredients that are coming together that make this a highly probable severe weather outbreak. Again, later today into tonight. Some of the states involved, most certainly Alabama and Mississippi into Tennessee. This region right here, the Storm Prediction Center based out in Norman, Oklahoma, has a high probability, a high threat probability of severe weather in this particular area. And again, it can extend from the deep south all the way up into the Tennessee Valley and ultimately the Ohio Valley. Numerous ingredients are coming together to support the idea of a widespread severe weather outbreak today. Well, let's just use a blank map at first to try to talk about some of these ingredients before we go to the actual computer forecast models. One of the things I want to talk about here is the orientation of an upper level wave of energy. We refer to some of these upper level waves of energy as Vorticity Maxima. That's basically a spin in the atmosphere, in the upper part of the atmosphere. You can have a trough axis that's oriented in this fashion from northeast to southwest. That's what we call a positively tilted trough axis. That trough axis can swing around to what we call a neutral position and ignore the geography underneath. I'm just trying to show the different orientations here of the upper level feature because it plays a big role in today's severe weather threat. Ultimately, that trough axis can take on what we call a negatively tilted orientation from northwest to southeast, and when it gets into this position, it really suggests it's a kind of a mature upper level wave of energy, and the upward motion right to its east in this quadrant right here. And again, ignore the geography here. Just look at the drawings here. In this particular location, on just to the east of that negatively tilted trough axis, there's tremendous upward motion in the atmosphere, and that contributes to, in this case, a severe weather threat. In addition, we have very strong flow of air from the Gulf of Mexico today into tonight. It's pushing some very humid air into the lower levels of the atmosphere, and on top of that, literally on top of that, in the mid and upper levels, we have some dry air from the arid areas of the southwestern U.S. So we have low level, very warm and humid air, upper level dry air. That creates instability in the atmosphere. Again, a contributing factor to the severe weather outbreak expected today into tonight. And finally, we have another ingredient I want to talk about. We have low pressure right now starting to shape up over the south central U.S., and it will just intensify rapidly as it moves to the North Andes. And intensifying surface low pressure, always an area to look at during a potential severe weather outbreak. Oftentimes tornadoes will form near an intensifying surface low pressure system, so we'll have to watch for that, of course, later today and tonight. This will intensify rapidly as that negatively tilted upper level feature moves overhead, and that will generate a rapid strengthening of the surface low pressure system. Well, now let's take a look at how all these ingredients show up in the computer forecast model. We're using the operational run of the GFS from 6Z last night. Here is the wave of energy, what we call a Vorticity Maxima, in the upper part of the atmosphere. It is associated with upward motion in one quadrant, downward motion in another quadrant, and again, this is the trough axis orientation I was referring to on that blank map of the U.S. And watch what happens here as we go through the day today into the night. And this is what I'm talking about in terms of a negatively tilted trough axis oriented from the northwest to the southeast. This produces some tremendous upward motion on the eastern side here, and that contributes to the development of thunderstorms and to the possibility of severe weather. So again, we have a very strong feature in the upper part of the atmosphere that takes on a negatively tilted trough axis, and that contributes to vast instability in the atmosphere. That continues to push into the Ohio Valley by later on tonight, and then into the Great Lakes region. And the threat today will be from the deep south across the Tennessee Valley into the Ohio Valley in terms of severe weather. And then by later tonight into early tomorrow, there'll be certainly a threat for 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts in the Mid-Atlantic region just ahead of a frontal system. The threat for severe thunderstorms will definitely diminish by the time Friday morning rolls around. It can be a thunderstorm in the I-95 corridor region late tonight, tomorrow morning, in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. But the severe weather threat does diminish. But while that diminishes, the threat for some damaging wind gusts will continue. And again, could see 50-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts in the Mid-Atlantic region late tonight and tomorrow morning. Let's keep moving ahead. That moves on out of the picture. And Saturday, this is a Saturday forecast map, turns out to be a much quieter day for the deep south, the south central U.S., and all the way into the eastern U.S. Quite a nice day, as a matter of fact, on Saturday. Well, another ingredient that we didn't talk about yet, the low-level jet streak around 850 millibars, a couple thousand feet off the surface, the ground level. Winds will become very strong, and that contributes to overall wind shear. And wind shear refers to basically a change of wind speed and wind direction with altitude. You may have southerly winds near the surface, westerly winds in the mid-level of the atmosphere, northwest in the upper part of the atmosphere, all at different miles per hour, and that produces wind shear. Wind shear is an important factor to look at with respect to the the potential formation of tornadoes. In the low levels, we'll have very, very strong winds developing. Here we go through the day today, and look at this. By the time we get to this evening, very strong winds at the 850 millibar level. In other words, a low-level jet streak. We're talking purple here, which is 64 knots and higher. It's very strong. That'll contribute to the potential of tornadoes, certainly the potential for damaging wind gusts as it adds to the shear in the atmosphere. So again, a low-level jet is another ingredient that's coming together for this severe weather outbreak. That moves all the way, it translates all the way into the Mid-Atlantic region by later tonight into tomorrow morning. And again, you can see 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor, and certainly 60-mile-per-hour possible out in western Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia. A little bit more potent out there with that upper level feature moving over the interior part of the Mid-Atlantic region. But all of this suggests wind advisories could go up throughout the Mid-Atlantic region for later on tonight into tomorrow morning. It remains windy into tomorrow night, not quite as bad as what I expect late tonight and tomorrow morning. And then a nice day, again, setting up for Saturday in much of the eastern and southern part of the U.S. Well, now let's take a look at the surface forecast maps from last night's 6Z run of the GFS. And we've talked about how isobars here represent areas of equal pressure, these black lines, and winds flow generally parallel to these isobars. In this case, right out of the Gulf of Mexico into the deep south, the Tennessee Valley. Again, that is an important ingredient. Very warm and humid air in the lower part of the atmosphere. In the upper part of the atmosphere, winds are actually blowing from the southwest U.S. That'll provide some drying aloft. So when you have dry air aloft, very humid air down at the lower levels, that creates instability in the atmosphere. Again, another ingredient setting up for a severe weather threat. Also, we talked about the rapidly intensifying low pressure area. Right now, the 1003, 1003 millibars. Watch what happens here by the time we get to 12 hours later, early this evening, 993. So it went from 1003 to 993 in the space of a 12-hour period from early this morning to early this evening. And here is the area again of concern from the deep south, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, all the way up into Kentucky, the Ohio Valley, from the deep south to the Ohio Valley. Not only today, but tonight as well. Showers actually reach the mid-Atlantic region this evening and continue into the overnight hours. And those winds in the mid-Atlantic will really strengthen, especially later tonight into tomorrow morning. Let's go forward here. And one of the reasons why the severe weather threat will diminish by the time the frontal system reaches the eastern seaboard is the timing will not be all that conducive to severe weather. The real front comes really through the I-95 corridor region, maybe midday tomorrow, so it won't be the peak heating time of the day. Nonetheless, you can have damaging wind gusts, again, up to 50 miles per hour or so, and that sweeps on through. Still windy tomorrow night. And then we get into the day on Saturday. And again, this is the Saturday morning forecast map. Quite a nice day all the way from the deep south to the northeastern part of the nation with high pressure in control. So very serious weather situation setting up for today and tonight from the deep south to the Tennessee Valley to the Ohio Valley with severe thunderstorms, a very strong likelihood. Isolated tornadoes, could end up being more tornadoes than what we experienced last week, and that was 50 plus tornadoes in that first significant severe weather outbreak of the season. For the mid-Atlantic region, the threat for severe thunderstorms will certainly be diminished, but can be some damaging wind gusts of up to 50 miles per hour or so in the I-95 corridor region late tonight, tomorrow morning, 60 miles per hour or so in the western part of the mid-Atlantic region, the eastern part of the Ohio Valley late tonight into tomorrow morning. So certainly if you live in Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Alabama, stay tuned to for local weather advisories throughout the day today and into the nighttime hours. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.